When I found 98 brand new houses worth $34 million sitting on land I'd owned for 30 years, that HOA Karen thought she pulled off the perfect heist. Too bad she just handed me the deed to her entire subdivision. Picture coming home to discover an entire neighborhood where your cattle used to graze. Families unpacking U-Hauls, kids chalking driveways, all on your property without permission. Victoria Ashworth had the audacity to serve me with a restraining order, claiming I was threatening families with surveying equipment. This woman stole my land, then painted me as the dangerous neighbor terrorizing innocent children. What she didn't know: my grandfather's 1924 contract means every house she built automatically became mine the moment they poured the first foundation. Before we dive in, what would you do if someone built 98 houses on your land? My name is Ezekiel Thornfield. Friends call me Zeke. At 67, I've spent 40 years as a land surveyor, walking property lines and settling boundary disputes across 3 counties. My grandfather left me 847 acres of prime rolling hills back in '94, along with a piece of advice: boy, never trust a man who measures land without getting his boots muddy. Every dawn, I'd walk my fence lines with black coffee, listening to gravel crunch under my boots while checking for storm damage. When my wife Martha passed 5 years ago, our 2 kids moved off to chase city dreams. Can't blame them for wanting more excitement than watching grass grow, but it left me rattling around a 1952 farmhouse with just my heritage cattle and memories. Enter Victoria Ashworth. Call me Vicky. The kind of woman who treats a clipboard like a nuclear weapon. At 52, she's mastered that suburban HOA president look: blonde highlights fresh from the salon, white Lexus SUV detailed weekly, and the dead-eyed smile of someone who's reported neighbors for having the wrong shade of mailbox. Vicky's married to Brad Ashworth, our town councilman. For 8 years, she'd been circling my property like a buzzard, sending intermediaries with insulting offers for my unused pasture land. The real trouble started when I returned from a 3-week visit helping my daughter through a messy divorce in Oregon. Driving up my gravel driveway, something felt wrong. Instead of cattle lowing, I heard the suburban symphony of lawnmowers and children shrieking. What I found made my coffee mug slip from my hands. 98 pristine houses spread across my land like a suburban infection. Manicured lawns where my Angus cattle used to graze. A decorative stone entrance reading Heritage Meadows Estates. Families unpacking U-Hauls. Kids drawing chalk masterpieces. I stood there gawking, but there was my grandfather's oak tree with Martha's initials carved in the bark. This was definitely my land, but somebody had turned it into suburbia without asking permission. That's when Vicky materialized in a golf cart wearing an official HOA badge. Excuse me, sir. This is private property. Heritage Meadows is a gated community for residents only. I looked around at my trees, my creek, the land where my grandfather taught me to respect property boundaries. Ma'am, I think there's been some kind of mistake. This is my property. Has been since 1994. Vicky's laugh sounded like fingernails on a chalkboard. Oh honey, I'm afraid you're confused. Heritage Meadows was purchased legally 2 years ago. 3 days later, Deputy Mike Ashworth knocked on my door with papers and a smirk. The restraining order claimed I'd trespassed on Heritage Meadows property and threatened residents with surveying equipment in a menacing manner. The order prohibited me from entering my own back 40 acres. Violation meant jail time. But here's where 40 years of surveying experience pays dividends. While Vicky was busy playing victim online, I drove to the county courthouse and started pulling records. The filing fee for that supposed property transfer caught my eye immediately: $50 measly. Tennessee requires big property transfers to have notarized affidavits with multiple witnesses and filing fees that match the transaction size. The real smoking gun was the notary stamp. Eleanor Hutchins had handled real estate closings for 3 decades. Problem was, Eleanor died 6 months before she allegedly notarized my property transfer. Unless she was signing documents from the great beyond, somebody had forged her stamp. I called my old surveyor buddy Clarence Bulldog McKenzie. He spent 2 days with GPS equipment walking every inch of my boundaries. Zeke, your property lines are accurate within 6 inches. That whole subdivision is sitting on your land like fleas on a hound dog. Vicky escalated to psychological warfare. Security services started patrolling Heritage Meadows in golf carts like my cattle posed a terrorist threat. Then came the state licensing board complaint claiming I was mentally declining and dangerous to public safety. The county threatened to condemn my farmhouse as a public nuisance. Apparently 70 years of honest work made my home an eyesore compared to cookie-cutter McMansions. That evening, checking my fence line, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Security cameras hidden in my oak trees with cables snaking back toward Heritage Meadows. They'd been tapping into my power meter to run surveillance equipment. 2 weeks later, Vicky pulled her media card. Channel 7 News rolled up like they were covering a presidential assassination. The story? Elderly man's delusions threaten young families. They interviewed concerned mothers, painted me as a confused hermit, and gave Vicky 5 uninterrupted minutes to perform her victim routine. We just want to live peacefully. It breaks my heart to see someone so confused, but we can't let one person's mental decline endanger our children. But while Vicky was busy winning awards for fake crying, I was doing what surveyors do best, following paper trails. Then my guardian angel arrived, Ruby Morgan, investigative reporter for the Nashville Tribune. She'd moved to small-town Tennessee seeking peace after big city burnout. Mr. Thornfield, I've covered enough white-collar crime to recognize a con job. Mind if I examine your documentation? Ruby spent 3 days independently reviewing public records, confirming my ownership, and discovering Heritage Meadows marketing materials dated 2 years before the alleged purchase. She uncovered Brad's sealed juvenile record for real estate fraud in Kentucky. Our town councilman had previous experience stealing property. But the real game-changer came when Ruby called at 6 a.m. 3 days before Vicky's festival. Zeke, get down to the courthouse basement right now. I found something that's going to blow this case apart. She spread yellowed documents across a table, original 1924 railroad easement contracts. Your grandfather was a genius, Ruby gasped. Look at Clause 7. My hands trembled reading the faded text. Ezekiel Thornfield Sr. hadn't just negotiated mineral rights with Tennessee Central Railroad. He'd secured development protection stronger than Fort Knox. Any unauthorized structures built on Thornfield property would automatically transfer ownership to the family, along with every improvement, fixture, and blade of grass. Sweet mother of pearl, I whispered. Grandpa saw this coming a century ago. The contract language was ironclad. Filed with the Federal Railway Commission, it carried jurisdiction that made state property law look like suggestions. Ruby's detective work revealed my property extended 200 feet beyond current survey markers, encompassing not just 98 houses, but Heritage Meadows clubhouse, swimming pool, tennis courts, and that golf course where Brad played every weekend. Total theft includes facilities worth $8 million, Ruby calculated. Under your grandfather's contract, Vicky just handed you a $42 million gift. Vicky's desperation peaked as her world collapsed. Someone cut my internet and phone lines. My truck tires got slashed again. A threatening note appeared, accidents happen to stubborn old fools. Brad pushed an emergency city council resolution to annex Heritage Meadows into city limits, a bureaucratic masterstroke that would override county property laws. Ruby's investigation shifted into overdrive. Computer forensics revealed they'd been stealing digital signatures from legitimate transactions. The Eleanor Hutchins forgery wasn't isolated, they'd been grave-robbing dead notaries' identities across 4 counties. Heritage Meadows families started receiving special assessments, thousands per household to fund the legal battle. Vicky was literally extorting the people she'd supposedly protected. The independent building inspector Ruby hired found 47 major code violations, including houses built on wooden platforms over buried swampland without proper septic permits. But the environmental revelation hit like lightning. Ruby discovered Heritage Meadows was built over federally protected wetlands without EPA permits. They destroyed rare salamander breeding grounds, triggering Endangered Species Act violations carrying $25,000 in daily fines. Festival day arrived with picture-perfect weather. Heritage Meadows sparkled like a movie set. The smell of barbecue and cotton candy mixed with fresh-cut grass. Vicky orchestrated her final performance at the festival gazebo, bringing microphones and an oversized cardboard check for $300,000. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to demonstrate how reasonable people can resolve conflicts without destroying families. I played my part, pretending to consider her offer while federal agents positioned around the festival. Dr. Sarah Lightfoot arrived discreetly, carrying EPA testing equipment disguised in a family picnic basket. She began soil and water sampling, discovering fresh concrete poured over wetlands overnight. The media ambush came during lunch when Brad arranged a surprise television interview to attack my credibility. Channel 7's cameras rolled as he portrayed me as confused and dangerous. The interview was interrupted by federal marshals serving arrest warrants live on television. Brad's face transformed from smug confidence to panic as handcuffs clicked around his wrists during the broadcast. Vicky's meltdown began when she realized Brad's arrest exposed their entire conspiracy. Standing beside the bounce house, she started screaming at federal agents about constitutional rights. Ruby's newspaper released the complete evidence package online while families ate barbecue. Interactive timelines showed 4 years of fraud. Financial records proved international money laundering. EPA testing revealed groundwater contamination affecting the entire area, forcing immediate evacuation at federal expense. I stepped to the microphone, wearing my grandfather's surveyor compass around my neck, holding the original 1924 railroad easement. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to set the record straight about my family's land and the criminals who thought they could steal it. I read key passages aloud, explaining how the contract automatically transferred ownership of any unauthorized construction. Every house, every streetlight, every blade of grass in Heritage Meadows belongs to me under federal law. My grandfather was smart enough to protect our family from exactly this kind of theft. Vicky pushed through the crowd, grabbing the microphone. This is all lies and fake documents. That's when U.S. Attorney Marcus Webb stepped forward with arrest warrants. Victoria Ashworth, you're under arrest for 47 counts including fraud, money laundering, environmental crimes, and conspiracy to commit theft. 6 months later, Heritage Meadows stood like a suburban ghost town. Yellow EPA tape fluttered where manicured lawns once spread. My cattle grazed peacefully where McMansions once squatted, proving that good land always outlasts bad ideas. Vicky Ashworth got 15 years in federal prison. Brad received 20 years for racketeering. Sheriff Mike Ashworth and 3 city council members earned 5-year vacations courtesy of the federal penitentiary system. 23 Heritage Meadows families accepted my rent-to-own offers, building sustainable homes on properly zoned land. Maria Santos became our community liaison, her children now playing in clean streams where toxic runoff once flowed. The Thornfield Foundation launched with $20 million from the property windfall, funding scholarships for first-generation college students. The Martha Thornfield Memorial Library offers free legal aid clinics helping property owners protect themselves. 400 acres became the Thornfield Wildlife Sanctuary, protecting endangered salamanders and wetlands that educate future generations. Ruby's Pulitzer Prize launched her Washington Post career. Her Emmy-winning documentary became required viewing in journalism schools. I teach surveying at the community college now, sharing 40 years of experience. Key lesson: accurate measurements and honest documentation built America. Everything else is just expensive decoration. Personal healing came like Tennessee sunrise. I visit Martha's grave each evening, reporting community progress. Her journal's final entry still guides me: Zeke fights for what's right, not what's easy. Have you battled HOA nightmares or property disputes? Share your story in the comments below.